Hi, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar on how to manage your company credit card expenses more effectively. We're delighted to bring you this webinar. My name is Martin Nekev. I'm the account director at Zetadocs, and I'm joined by my colleagues Kieran Bandel, who is our customer success manager, and David Cole, who is a senior member of our product team. In case you don't know, Zetadocs Expenses is our expense management software designed specifically for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. If you have any questions about what you see during the webinar, please pop them into the chat and we'll take some time to answer those at the end. So let's get started. I'll hand you over to Kieran, who will take you through the first couple of slides.
Thanks, Martin. So let's take a look at today's agenda for today's webinar. First, we'll consider some of the challenges that many small and medium-sized companies face when it comes to expense management. We'll then explain how using our software can help you overcome these challenges. Naturally, we focus on our own solution, Zetadocs Expenses, including an overview of some of its features. Then finally, we'll get into the bit I'm sure you are all here for, to see the software in action so that you can start to assess whether it might be a helpful solution for your company's credit card management. First, let's take a look at some of the challenges faced by both finance teams and cardholders when credit card expenses are managed manually. For cardholders, firstly, the process of keeping track of expense receipts is inconvenient. Recording and approving payments each month can be a time-consuming task, especially when performed manually. The process involves documenting and verifying each payment, which requires a lot of effort, attention to detail, and a considerable amount of time. Without the help of automated systems or digital tools, cardholders have to navigate through stacks of invoices, receipts, and financial records, making it an inefficient process that is prone to errors. In terms of finance teams, the process of comparing and matching transactions recorded in an individual or company's bank statements with their internal financial records is an undeniably a labor-intensive and time-consuming task. The act of manually inputting information can cause human errors, which have significant consequences on the accuracy and reliability of the data. Manually entering data requires the finance team to rekey information from physical documents, such as receipts, into a digital format. This requires a high degree of concentration, precision, and attention to detail. I'll now hand back over to Martin, who will take you through the next section of the webinar.
Thank you, Kieran. So those are the challenges, but what are the benefits of using software such as Zetadocs Expenses to manage your company credit card expenses? Firstly, it saves the finance team time. Rapid reconciliation of bank statements swiftly matches and verifies transactions recorded in an individual or company's bank statement, which saves time, enhances efficiency, and promotes accurate financial management. By leveraging the software, such as the automatic import of card payments, finance teams can expedite the reconciliation process and improve financial operations. Additionally, the automatic import of card payments streamlines the reconciliation process by seamlessly integrating transaction data from the card payment processors directly into the accounting system. This eliminates the need for manual entry of card transaction details, which is not only time-consuming but also prone to errors. Secondly, it's more convenient. Corporate credit card holders can easily capture receipts using their smartphones while making purchases with their cards. Matching these payments with the corresponding transactions from the card statement becomes a swift process for the finance teams. There is also no manual rekeying of receipt information, preventing any errors. Finally, you have more accuracy and control. Automated data entry systems use advanced technology such as OCR, that's optical character recognition, to automatically extract data from various sources such as invoices, receipts, and other financial documents. By eliminating the need for manual transcription, these systems not only enhance accuracy but also quicken the data entry process, allowing for more efficient and reliable financial record keeping. In addition to this, implementing policies and approval procedures can help prevent excessive card spending and promote responsible financial management. By establishing clear guidelines and spending limits, employees or the finance team can ensure that all card expenditures are subject to appropriate authorization. Not only does this help control expenses, but also minimizes the risk of fraudulent or unauthorized transactions. So looking more specifically at how Zetadocs Expenses helps you, we are delighted to let you know that we have launched some new features to help you manage credit card expenses. Daily bank feeds is one of these. This feature enables finance teams to automatically import card payments, meaning they are quickly visible to cardholders for submitting their expenses with no manual action needed from finance teams to upload these transactions. Receipts are captured easily. Submitters simply photograph receipts using the phone app. Zetadocs Expenses then analyzes the image to extract information, for example, the vendor, the amount, the date, and the tax, before creating a new expense with the key information populated and the receipt attached automatically, with no manual rekeying of the receipt information needed. Another new feature is that receipts and payments are now automatically matched. Cardholders can capture their receipts using Zetadocs Expenses at their convenience, knowing that the software will link the expense receipt to the relevant payment transaction automatically. So let's dive into the demonstration. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to the team of personas that we'll feature in this demo. Firstly, we have Alex, who's the sales employee who will be submitting an expense. We have Lynn, who is Alex's line manager. And then lastly, we have April, who's the finance processor. So over to you, David, for the demonstration.
Thanks, Martin. So now let me show you how easy it is to capture company credit card expenses using Zetadocs. So during this demonstration, I'll be using 3 different personas as we walk through it. First of all, there will be Alex, who is a salesperson out on the road incurring expenses, and he's doing that on a corporate credit card that he's been issued, an Amex card. Then there's his line manager, Lynn, who will be reviewing and approving those expenses. And then there's April, who is in the finance team, who does the final round of approval and processing of the expenses before they're exported into Business Central. So on screen now, you can see the homepage for Alex when he logs into Zetadocs Expenses. And you can see here that he has got 5 draft expenses that he's previously created, but hasn't yet submitted for approval. And he's also got 2 new card payments here. I click there, we can see those 2 new card payments. Now these have come in via the daily bank feed, or the automatic feed. And these payments aren't yet linked to any expense receipt, and therefore Alex needs to create an expense to justify these payments. If Alex had previously created an expense with a receipt, then as soon as new payments are imported into this list, we will match up those payments to the expense that he previously created so that he won't see the payments in this list, they'll just immediately get matched. But in this case, you can see we've got a couple of payments that have come in where there's no previously created expense to match them to, and therefore Alex needs to create an expense now for each of these payments to justify them and put them through for approval. Now, Alex has got a couple of choices here about how he creates these expenses, and he can use whichever method he likes, whatever works best for him. So let me show you those 2 choices. First of all, Alex could start with the receipt that he will have from the purchase that he made. And if he was doing that, then on the home page, he could simply click the new receipt button. Now, if he was doing this on the phone app, then at this point he would take a photograph of the receipt. For this demonstration, I'm using the desktop app, so I'm going to select the file that contains the receipt. Either way, the process is much the same. So if I select that receipt there, we can now see that for a few seconds, Zetadocs is analyzing that receipt to extract the key information from it, and it uses that information to populate this new expense in Zetadocs. So you can see that much of the key information here, such as the date of the transaction, the vendor name, the expense amount, the tax amount, etc., has all been extracted from this receipt. So Alex doesn't need to enter that manually. What he does need to do is enter a note or a description just to justify the expense that he's made. So let's put a snack before a meeting he had. He also needs to make sure that he changes the payment method to say that this wasn't a cash expense, but it was actually an expense on his Amex card. And as I select the Amex card, you see that this has popped up where it says remove payment link. And that tells us that Zetadocs has automatically matched up now this expense that we've created to the payment that's in the system that we saw in that list earlier. So the 2 things, this new expense and the payment, have been automatically linked. Alex might choose to add another note here if he wants to give his line manager more context around the expense, but in this case, I won't bother with that. And all the other fields you can see have been populated for Alex. You can see that the expense type was automatically populated, and that's because he's previously processed an expense from the same vendor, so we remember what he selected last time. Similarly with the department and job, etc. down here, we've remembered the last value he entered, and Alex could change that now if he needed to. But for this demonstration, I'll leave those values as they are. Click on Save. And you can see now that our number of draft expenses has gone up to 6 because we've just created a new one. And the new card payments in the system has gone down to 1 because when Alex uploaded that receipt, Zetadocs created an expense for him and automatically linked that expense to that card payment that was previously in this list. So that was one option for how Alex can go about creating expenses in the system for his credit card purchases. So hopefully you saw how that really is quite quick. Photograph a copy of a receipt, and Zetadocs extracts information from that receipt to create the expense for him. Another way of working that Alex might choose to go for is to work from this list on screen now with the payments that have come in via the bank feed. So if he wanted to do that option, then he could simply select the payment here. He'd then be able to view on screen details of this transaction that have come in via the bank feed. And you can click on the edit button in order to create a new expense using this transaction or payment. So you can see here that much of the information again has been populated here for him based on information from the bank feed. And what Alex would now want to do most likely is add a receipt that he'll need to be able to submit this expense. So if we submit this receipt this time, Zetadocs is just uploading that file now. And again, Alex would need to add a description here just to justify the expense and any other notes he might want to add. But otherwise, this expense, again, is all really pre-populated for him with the amount, tax, etc., all picked up as per the receipt. And that's Alex's job done for recording this payment. So hopefully you've seen there the two choices, whereby you start with the receipt or you start with the payment that's come in via the bank feed. Either way, there's very little in the way of manual data entry because Zetadocs extracts information from either the receipt or the bank feed to be able to populate the key information on the new expense for you automatically. So once Alex has uploaded all his expenses for the month and wants to submit those through for approval, that's a simple process of clicking here to create a new report, in this case an expense report, and he can then add all his expenses onto the same report. So you can see Alex here has got, I think, 7 different expenses, which are of different types. So we've got, I think, 4 different expenses here that he incurred on his Amex card. But we've also got some other expenses, such as a mileage expense up here, that he's personal mileage on his own car that he needs to reclaim. He also did a 3-day trip where he's entitled to claim a daily allowance for that. So there's an allowance or a per diem type expense here for that. There's also another expense here for a taxi, which I think he paid cash for, so he does need reimbursing for that. So regardless of the type of expense or whether you're due reimbursement for it, they can all just be added in batch to the same report, making that process nice and easy. So if I hit add there, that's all the expenses added to the report. We get a summary here of the expense total, and you'll notice here there's a difference between the total and the reimbursable amount, and that is explained by what I was just talking about, really, whereby some of the expenses on this report are those on his company issued Amex card, and of course Alex is not expecting any reimbursement for those, but there's other expenses which he has paid out of his own pocket, such as mileage, which he is expecting reimbursement for, so that explains that difference there. Alex can now go ahead and submit this expense report for approval, and you can see here that by default that's set to his line manager to approve it on the first round. If there was a need to add extra approvers into the loop, then you've got the option to do that, but I won't do that here. And then secondly, it goes to April, who's in the finance team. So we'll go ahead and submit that now. And that really is Alex's job done in terms of submitting his credit card expenses alongside some others that he also had. And on his homepage now, you see that we've just got one that's awaiting approval. So let's now switch over to the next stage of the process, which will be Lynn, Alex's line manager, who will receive a notification to approve the expense report that he's just submitted. So Lynn will receive a notification into her mailbox. Okay, so here we see the notification has come through to Lynn's mailbox, where she's got a summary of the report that she's being asked to approve, and she can click on the View Approval button here to be taken directly to the report to view the details. So here Lynn can see all of Alex's expenses that he's submitted, and Lynn has a choice here about whether she wants to click into each one of these expenses to view the individual details. So for example, here she can see the mileage claim that Alex has submitted. She can also see the receipt here for Amex purchase that he's made, et cetera, et cetera. And Lynn can flick through each one of these, and if she wants to, she can approve them individually or reject, as the case may be. The alternative is that Lynn can just bulk approve the expenses from here. So she could click approve here to just approve all the expenses in one go. Or again, she could reject it all in one go, or she could delegate it to someone else if necessary. So for this demo now, I'll just go ahead and approve this at the report level, and I get a warning telling me that I will be approving all the expenses on this report. So I'll say yes to that, and I won't have any comment in there. We'll just approve that to get that pushed through. And that is Lynn, as Alex's line manager's job done in terms of signing off his expenses. And we go back to her task list now, and that's a 0, so she's nothing further to do. Now, all expense reports need to go through a 2-stage approval process. So we've completed the first stage. This would now move on to the finance team to do the second stage of approval on those expenses. So if we switch into April's mailbox now, we see that April has received an email notification where, again, she's got a summary of what she's being asked to approve, and she can see the history of this approval trail. So she can see that it's come from Alex, and Lynn has done the first stage, and it's now for her to do. And again, April can click on the View Approval button here to go directly to the report that needs approving. And this is exactly the same as I just explained for Lynn, so I won't talk you through that again, but we'll just do the second stage approval here to push that through. So that's the expense report now fully approved. And if we go and have a look at that report now, we'll be able to see the history of that report, whereby we can see that Lynn has first of all approved those expenses, followed by April and the finance team, and that those expenses, or at least the reimbursable ones, the ones that Alex is due to be paid back for, have been exported directly to Business Central already on this journal. So I'll take a look at that in a moment. There are some other expenses on there, specifically the Amex card expenses, which haven't yet been exported to Business Central because that's pending approval of the payment card report, which is what is used for reconciling bank statements, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But first of all, let's just have a quick look into Business Central to see the reimbursable expenses that have already been exported. So there you can see we've got three different expenses that have been exported, and you can see here that those have been exported against an employee account in Business Central. There's various options available as to how expenses are exported into Business Central. You want to do the reconciliation inside Business Central, then you could export to a journal against a suspense account, or if you want to export against a vendor using a purchase invoice, then that's all possible too. So plenty of flexibility around the export. Let's just flick straight back into expenses now, though, and just look at the other process, because I mentioned that the Amex card expenses haven't yet been exported because the payment card report hasn't yet been approved. And the payment card report is what is used for reconciling the credit card statement each month. And that would be a task, obviously, that someone in finance team would typically do. And April, in this case, is going to do that. And so for her to do that, then she would come into the reports and to create a new payment card report, select the payment card that she wants to reconcile against, choose an end date for the payment card report that we want to receive new transactions up against, and then hit next to create that report. This is confirming the payment card that we're going to report, where there's only 4 transactions on there, which is what we're expecting, because in this demo, that's all we had that came in via the bank feed. If we open up this payment card report now, we can see what this looks like. And like I said, the payment card report is what is used inside Zetadocs Expenses for doing the reconciliation of the statement. So what you can see here is that all the payments that have come in via the bank feed have been matched to an approved expense. And that's exactly what we would want to see. And that's shown here too, where we've got the unmatched amount is 0. However, if we'd had other payments that have come in via the feed, which hadn't yet been matched to an approved expense, then they would be shown in this top section here. And then the finance person, or April in this case, would have the option to create a new expense for those and approve it herself if she wanted to, or to follow up with whoever's necessary to ensure that an expense is created and approved to justify that payment. And at that point, once I completed this process of ensuring all these payments are matched to expenses, I can submit that, and that would then go through, and we then see these other 4 transactions here exported to Business Central. Again, like we saw previously with the reimbursable expenses, there's options around how that's exported to Business Central. You could export it to a journal against a GL account or against a suspense account, etc. Just one other area to quickly touch on, probably of mainly interest to the finance teams. So all Zetadocs Expenses Essentials and Plus customers have the option of using the OData reporting feed, which can be hooked up to many different reporting applications, but most commonly would be Excel or Microsoft Power BI. That's a very quick and easy process to follow to hook up to that data feed, and that will allow you access to a comprehensive set of information about all expenses that have been approved in Zetadocs. So it'll only pull down approved expenses, not those in draft. And you can then use that data to meet, I would say, more or less any reporting requirement that you have around expenditure. So what I'm showing you here is just an example of the type of reporting that you can create in Power BI, whereby you can report on the trend of expenses over a period of time, the breakdown of different types of expenses. You might want to report on expenses across different departments, get more granular detail in this kind of way. You might want to understand which people individually are incurring the most expenses. You might be interested in tracking the mileage that different people are doing, different departments that are doing, tracking the amount of tax that can be reclaimed, etc. So just a very quick look at that to give you a flavour of the type of reporting that can be generated. Like I said, this OData feed can be pumped out to Excel if you're more comfortable using that tool, or in Power BI. And from there, you've got the freedom to create the reporting that you like. We do provide a reporting template for Power BI, which looks very similar to what you're seeing on screen now. So that gives you a starting point for the reporting that you can build on or tweak as you might need to. So that concludes the demo. I hope that was useful. Please do reach out to us if you have any follow-on questions, etc. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. That was a great demo. So now you've seen how Zetadocs Expenses helps you manage credit card expenses specifically. However, let me quickly cover some additional benefits of the software. The Zetadocs Expenses web and phone apps allow you to take snapshots of the receipts and enter expenses, for the managers to sign off expense reports whilst on the go, and for the claimants to check for themselves when the expenses are approved. Payments can be reimbursed to staff quickly and efficiently, sparing them the frustrating uncertainty and delays. Business mileage in private and company cars is also paid accurately and according to HMRC rules. Finance teams can set policies for reasonable travel expenses, ensure VAT is fully reclaimed, and simplify audits with immediate access to digital receipts and every expense detail. You can reconcile payment card statements with ease by matching and creating expenses from card payments rather than entering every payment manually, so it is faster for your finance teams and for cardholders. No rekeying is required, as approved expenses are recorded directly into Business Central as purchase invoices or journals with vendor, GL dimensions and tax codes already set. This is so that expenses are ready to reimburse to books or jobs. It's also important to let you know that Zetadocs Expenses supports any type of Business Central installation, whether online or on-premise, and it's very simple if you're an on-premise customer who then moves to the cloud, and there would not be any additional software cost for transitioning to the cloud. Back over to you, Martin.
So, what are the next steps following this webinar? Visit our website at zetadocs.com to find out further information and discover our resources. Check out our YouTube channel to find demonstrations, short feature videos, and further content on Zetadocs Expenses. Just type in Equisys or Equisys Limited into the search bar. And lastly, don't forget to book a free personalized demo with Kieran and myself. This will provide the opportunity for you to see a full range of features Zetadocs Expenses offers, tailored to your needs, and provide the chance to ask questions directly. We will be contacting attendees in the next few days to get your feedback and to see if you'd like to arrange a demo. However, you can also write in the chat now that you'd like a demo, or these can be booked in via our website. We've now come to the end of the webinar, so thank you very much for taking time out of your day to watch. We hope you found it useful. So we've had a few questions come in. Firstly, I can see here, how do you handle exchange rates associated with foreign currency card transactions? So when you transact in a foreign currency using your card, there are two values given by your bank, the transaction amount and then the conversion or settlement. Our solution will capture the transaction amount automatically via OCR, and then we'll also automatically adjust the exchange rate according to the rate given by your bank. So this means that you don't have to worry about manually adjusting any transactions. I can see that we've got another one here. So how does the software handle VAT? So the OCR functionality picks up the VAT amount from the receipt, so that ensures that you can reclaim the correct amount of tax. And then we've had another one come in. How is the matching of expenses handled? So matching of expenses against credit card transactions are automatic, so no need for any manual work there. Then I can see, how is the software licensed? So it's a software subscription. The software is licensed on an average user basis. So this means that all employees can be set up with their own license. However, we only bill our customers on the average amount of active users. I can also see someone's asked, do all users need to have a Business Central license? And the answer to that is no, you do not. We do have a few more questions, but unfortunately we've run out of time, so we won't be able to answer those on the webinar. However, we'll get in touch with those that have asked questions and haven't been answered just yet. So if you feel that Zetadocs Expenses can help you manage your credit card expenses more effectively, or could benefit your expense management process as a whole, we'd be delighted to arrange a demonstration with you. As mentioned, we will get in contact with you in the next few days, but please feel free to write in the chat that you'd be interested in arranging a demo. For now, thank you once again and have a great day and goodbye.